Hey guys, what's up? It's Lizzie Jane. Welcome back to the podcast. Today we have Hex Cougar joining me today to talk about his recent Visions EP and so much more. Played Lollapalooza recently. He's got Ember Shores and Escape Halloween in San Bernardino with Insomniac events coming up. So we go into the creative process, the collaborators, how he approaches making music, and how to truly achieve longevity in a field that is ever changing, especially with the social media landscape today. What he's done, what he's found works for him, and some background on his journey and the project. If you didn't tune in yesterday to the XX transmission on Insomniac Radio, make sure to do that every Wednesday at 4 p.m. Pacific time, 7 p.m. Eastern time to hear a little snippet of this conversation, as well as a guest mix, album playthrough, mini mix of the guests that I'm hosting for the week on the podcast. Let's just hop into it. If you love what we're doing here, if you enjoy these conversations, if you are learning something, please tag a friend, subscribe to our YouTube, rate us on Spotify, and just simply share, because we spread by word of mouth. And the more people we can reach, the cooler artists and guests I can have on in this ever-longing podcast journey. So let's hop into it. This is Lizzie Jane. You're tuning into the Lizzie Jane podcast with special guest Hex Cougar. Well, Hex Cougar, thanks so much for joining me on the Lizzie Jane podcast today. And how are you? How are you doing today?
I'm doing great. Yeah, thanks so much for having me. I've been following you as a musician for a while and your podcast. So yeah, it's an honor to be on.
Same to you. I feel like it's crazy because time goes by so quickly, and then you look back and you realize how many projects and individuals have been here for quite some time now, through the ebbs and flows of our industry and trends coming up and down, and pre-TikTok era and post-TikTok era. And you are genuinely one of the first artists that I came about when I kind of took a step back during COVID, and I was like, I really want to embed myself in this cinematic, melodic pocket of dance music and who exists here. And you were in that top category of individuals that have been pushing this sound forever. So how does it feel to be, X amount of years in dance music and still finding your sound and pushing those records forward despite, everything else happening in our scene?
Yeah, it feels crazy. When I hit 30, I think there was a point where I was like, oh shit, I'm really old, and I was kind of down about it for a little bit, because I was like, there are all these young producers who are coming out and making this incredible music. But I was like, you know what? I think being a little bit older, you have a little bit of wisdom that I think you've gained throughout the years. And I think that gives you a unique perspective on how to make music and how to approach your art and your projects. And yeah, I'm still so grateful to be doing it years later, and yeah, just happy to be here.
And I feel like you can see that gratitude in every chapter of your project, where, I mean, you just played Lollapalooza this past summer, which obviously was a huge moment for the project. So how did that feel when you got the offer, you got the booking? How was the set at Perry Stage, historical, iconic stage? Tell me all about it.
I was not expecting to play LOL anytime in the near future. That's, for me, it's always been one of those festivals where I was like, I'm gonna play it, or I want to play it one day, but it's kind of in the very distant future. So my manager called me and he's like, hey, do you want to play Lollapalooza? And I was like, you're kidding, there's no way this is real. Of course, that's insane. So yeah, after that we were it's Lolla, we have to go all out. Even though I hadn't really thought, we're gonna create a fully time coded 40-minute set. I'm gonna shoot all the visuals myself, create something brand new. So yeah, we pulled out all the stops, and it was surreal. I got on stage and played my set, and then afterwards I walked off stage and I was like, all those months of preparation and everything, and now it's just over. Like, I can't believe that happened so fast. But yeah, it felt crazy.
I feel like when you're working on something like your EP, your Visions EP just dropped this past Friday on Break Room, which is a label I have so been hyper focusing on because they're putting out the coolest records right now from a lot of people that I think as like artist projects are gonna blow the hell up in the next few years. Not only was it a forward thinking EP, but when you have a show that caliber, that size, with that reputation, it's almost like working on a large body of work where you have so much preparation from multiple team members that go into an actual 40-minute, hour and a half performance. And it's one of those things. It's like I did the same thing for Red Rocks where like you get that opportunity, you go and you give it like your freaking all. And it's so cool because it was only like a few weeks ago, and that's a perfect segue into your Visions EP. Did you use some of the visuals that you used for the creative, like kind of world universe in the Visions EP in your Lala set? Because I'm sure you played that new music.
Yeah, there's a ton of overlap. We went out to like various remote nature landscapes throughout California, and we shot in 4 locations, but we shot like so much content. I think we shot at least like 6 or 8 hours worth of content. I was like, well, yeah, I'm gonna use this for the Lala set, but also like, why not use it for the EP, you know? And since I was playing so many of the EP tracks, it just kind of made sense.
Huge congrats on that performance, because I feel like that is one of those bookings that every artist has on that long list. And when you're able to cross it off, you're like, damn, okay, I freaking did that. And then you just released the Vision EP. I would love to get into the concept behind the EP. It's a full collaborative EP. Each record on the EP is a collab with an up and coming producer that lives in various kind of subgenre buckets. We were just talking about Asian. Shout out Denver homie. He's absolutely killing it. That track is phenomenal and a great round out to the format EP. And yeah, tell me about EP now out on Break Room.
I don't think there was like really an intentional process of like, oh, I'm gonna start working on an EP. I've done that in the past where I've been like, okay, this is my concept for the project. I'm gonna do this, this, and this, and the art's gonna look like this. But for this one, it was kind of like I'd finished the Embody EP, which was my previous EP, and I just started writing a ton of music. Then after the course of like a few months, I looked back and I was like, you know, I think I have like a cohesive body of work here. You know, this is like a collection of songs from a very specific time in my life. And I think it all just kind of works together cohesively. And I was like, all right, so now let's start building the world. Let's start like doing the visuals and kind of creating the story behind everything.
You're a very cinematic based producer. So I feel like the world building is something that you've all committed to as an artist. And just like, I think everybody knows the Hex Cougar project for that, even since like the early days of your music. I would love to talk about, if you feel comfortable, what time in your life, like what were you going through when you made like those records, kind of like emotions, maybe something happened in your life, and how do you start to approach making the creative universe, because it plays such a large part in like your specific subgenre of music?
My previous EP Embody was kind of like, I'd written that after a period of being very disenfranchised by the electronic music scene and kind of fallen out of love with electronic music. So that EP was about falling back in love with electronic music. Whereas I think Visions is kind of like taking that love and then continuing to nurture it and keeping on finding ways to stay inspired and to just like, just to keep on inspiring myself.
And I think that's so important because, as you said earlier, like it is kind of crazy when you look at 18, 19, 20-year-olds who are kind of entering the touring circuit and you go, holy shit, I've been in this for a decade plus, and I've seen the golden SoundCloud era and the ebbs and flows of how social media plays in like today's age of growing as an artist. But I think that really easy for when you're younger for everything to be so shiny and sparkly and like momentum based, and then as you get older and like you live through experiences that give you context and more things to write about, you are able to be a bit more invested in the journey and the process, and like allow yourself to fully either reinvent yourself or reinvent like your love with music through pieces of art. And I feel like you've always been able to do that, and you have definitely successfully obtained longevity in a current state of music where longevity really doesn't exist. Like, we are so in a climate where there is a very hard career shelf life. For anybody listening, I would love for you to give like a little bit of an insight to like how long you've been writing music and things that you found along the way to not let yourself fall out of love with writing music, and like ways to just keep yourself excited.
Yeah. I mean, I've been writing music since I was, I think, 6 or 7 years old. I started writing or playing piano when I was 6. I come from an Indian household, so there's a stereotype about Asian parents and their kids. It's like, as soon as you can walk, you have to learn how to play the piano or like a violin or some sort of instrument. So yeah, at 6, I started playing the piano. I didn't like reading sheet music and like playing stuff that other people had written, but I loved like just composing my own music. So yeah, that's when I was younger, from like the ages of like 6 to 18, I would just write music on the piano, and I wouldn't like write it down. I would just have all my compositions stored in my head. So like, yeah, I don't know why I didn't write it down, but that's just kind of how I recorded it. And then when I turned 18, my cousin got me Ableton, and that just kind of completely changed like how I viewed music and writing music. Like, he got me a MIDI keyboard as well, and I was like, so I can like play this keyboard like a piano, but I can create like a guitar. I can like write a MIDI like a synth, like I can create drums just by like playing this like a piano. Like, it was crazy to me. I was a college kid at USC, and at that time it was like 2010, 2011. EDM was starting to explode, like artists like Skrillex, people like A-Track, Diplo, like the EDM trap scene. So as a college kid, I don't know if you know anything about USC, but it's right across the street from this venue called The Shrine, which is like a legendary LA venue. And so literally every weekend, every other weekend, we would just like hop across the street and like go see like Skrillex play. Like, it was crazy. So I remember being in the crowd and just looking up and being like, holy shit, that is so cool. Like, that is what I want to do for a living, So yeah, at the time I was like kind of creating more hip hop beats. But as electronic music blew up, I was like, I kind of want to fuse these two different like backgrounds of mine, like writing melodic piano sort of stuff, writing hip hop beats, and then like electronic music. So that's how Hex Cougar was born.
You can definitely hear it. And I feel like I hear it in your like work that there's hip hop. It's crazy. Like, you hear you saying, the new age of Skrillex and Diplo and A-Track. And I feel like very close behind that were people like Arl Grime. And, you've obviously collaborated with him. The Sable Valley, his label, has showed you huge support. You've done multiple sets when we were in COVID, all of that stuff, been on compilations. How was it to work with Arl Grime? Obviously, like, that's a bucket list deal for any producer, and kind of have that never ending support from his label on your music.
Like you said, like Arl was such a, he's like an idol. He's been to anyone that's been in the trap scene, like he's like, he's the GOAT. So to be able to work with him and like get his support is like, it's unreal to me. I think it was like 2018. Me and some of my friends were at this warehouse party, and Arl was playing. We're in the crowd, and they were like listening. And I'm like, wait, is he playing one of my songs? And we kept on listening. And I was like, holy shit, he's like playing one of my songs. Yeah, we lost it. And then afterwards, I think we were like in the back, like smoking patio, whatever, just hanging out. And Arl was standing in the corner, and I was like, oh my God, I'm gonna go say hi to him. So I go up to him, kind of talk for a little bit. I'm like, hey, nice to meet you, man. Like, thank you so much for playing my music. He's like, oh yeah, like I know your music. Like, like, yeah, you make good stuff. So I was like, yeah, thanks so much. Like, great to meet you. I'll talk to you later. So I walk back to my friends. They're like, so did you ask for his number? And I was like, no, I completely blanked. Like, I didn't ask for his number. They're like, you have to go back. You have to go ask for his number. So I was like, okay. I turn back around, go back to him like, hey, can I get your number real quick? And he's like, yeah, sure. There you go, man. And that's kind of how our, friendship or whatever kind of started.
For maybe some producers who are listening, who we all like, you are very tapped into the culture and you see all of the incredibly fire music, people that have like 100 followers and no social media following. If maybe one of those people are listening and they're really trying to figure out like how point A to B, and they know that their music is there, but like nothing else really is. What are maybe a few things that you would say to them to like really drive the point home that like kind of shooting your shot is the only way that you can do this here, paired with consistency? Because I feel like you've done that. So what would you say to maybe somebody in that position?
I would say some advice is like you said, just like shooting your shot. Most producers are pretty tapped in. So when people send me demos, like on whether it's IG or SoundCloud or Twitter or whatever, like I'll listen to every single demo, I don't know if most artists are like that, but I know like a lot of my friends are like that. So I think just being not afraid to put yourself out there, it can be kind of daunting and intimidating because like, the fear of rejection like sucks. But the worst someone can say is like no, or just ignore it, but you just got to keep on doing it over and over again. Eventually good stuff will come out of it, if you're like consistent about it. Like don't be like annoying, don't just like spam somebody, but like don't be afraid to show people your art, like
I feel like we're definitely in a time now more than ever where it's very much so like shout from the rooftop and shout over and over and over again. The artist Russ, I follow him on TikTok and he has like always just really good little things to say about artists, is understanding that the way that a consumer or another artist or a person existing in the timeline views you is not in a chronological way. So it's like even promoting like your past releases or using the same song over and over and over again. I used to not say that it was quantity over quality, but I unfortunately, to my dismay, feel like that is the current climax for our current climate for social media platforms currently. And since you've been in the game for so long, how have you felt like you've sustained those changes and been able to keep yourself and your project relevant, all the while not hating the new climate of what like social media poses for the current state of being an artist?
Unfortunately, like the climate is the way that it is, and you have to adapt to it. It's kind of like adapt or like survive or die, which is just like the unfortunate reality of it. But it's like I think you can adapt in a way that is fun and makes sense to you. No one's saying you have to go out there and start becoming like making like comedic music TikToks or doing like like doing like stand up or doing something that doesn't feel like yourself. There are ways to create content that's engaging on like Reels or TikTok or whatever that is very artistic. I've seen like just like very artfully shot, like well put together things blow up, so like no one's asking you to be super corny. It's just about kind of reformatting your vision to like a different medium, like don't change the essence of who you are, just kind of just repackage it in a slightly different way.
I love that because I feel like if you get stuck in doing something that you really don't like, this is unfortunately an industry where if you don't like it, it's not going to work out for you in your favor. So you have to find a way to be interested in every little pocket of what you're doing to promote your art. Because social media is a great tool and it's something that, cannot be ignored when it comes to sharing your art. But you found this medium and like this cinematic like landscape to where you don't have to hold up your phone and scream into the void to promote your stuff. You're doing stuff in a really tasteful, artistic manner. And that kind of comes all the way back to the EP where like you have this crazy like night costume kind of animation going on. So can you tell me about that? Because I know you worked with a few different digital animators and digital designers to like bring that vision to life. I want to know the background behind that.
Okay, so basically how I wanted to do it was I like for each song on the EP, I wanted to film myself at a different natural landscape. The first song I wanted to film at like this like vast, very expansive sort of like plain region that was like 3 hours away from Los Angeles. For the second one, it was at this ancient like volcano slash crater that's like 1 hour outside of Joshua Tree. So like yeah, I was traveling from location to location. And then for the final one, I was like, what if I just like had a suit of armor? Like it seemed kind of stupid, but like for my previous EP, Embody, I like had a t-shirt made that had like a knight with a suit of armor on it. So like that sort of imagery, like I don't know, I'm just like very kind of like into that whole like fantasy um sort of like, stuff. So I was like, yeah, what if I just had a whole ass suit of armor on? Put out the call on social media. Somebody referred me to somebody else. I got connected to some guy in Burbank who is like the most stereotypical blacksmith you've ever seen in your life. He was like this like 6 foot tall, just like burly white dude with like soot stained cheeks. Like his hands were just covered with soot. Um, but yeah, he helped me find a piece of armor, and he was very nice and very kind. And yeah, that's how the armor came to be.
That's incredible. And it's like a
Yeah.
little Easter egg. It's like you kind of go back through your discography and find these little things that you kind of brought to life and made actually literal from something like metaphysical beforehand.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
yeah, I'm very into to I want to ask if you watch The Witcher. Are you a big Witcher? Like, do you like Game of Thrones, Witcher? Like, are you into that kind of stuff?
Yeah. I love Game of Thrones. I've had people tell me to watch The Witcher, but I've not gotten into it yet. But like all that sort of stuff, like Lord of the Rings, like Game of Thrones, like that's my jam for sure.
Hell yeah, Lodar. We love that. We absolutely love that. From the creative process side, are you in Ableton? Are you in FL? What DAW do you work with?
I'm Ableton gang. Yeah. I
Okay.
started out in FL. I did FL for like 1 to 2 years. And actually I really liked it. Like FL is very intuitive, and like the way that you can like program drums is like so easy and makes sense. But I think like a couple years into it, um, I don't know why I switched over. I think maybe my license expired, but yeah, I switched over to Ableton and have never turned back.
Are we digging the new update coming out soon with all of the new features? Have you seen all the new features coming out in the Ableton 12 update? It's like the tremolo auto gear, it's consolidation, and there's more like splice integration, and I feel like that's a big one for the Ableton squad.
Yeah, I've seen some of the updates, but I don't think I've gotten the new update yet. But I mean, yeah, being able to do tremolo would be amazing. I saw there's some sort of like AI stem separation, right?
Hmm. Yeah. I wasn't really going to mention this, but you're kind of bringing it up. So I feel like you're maybe a little
Yeah.
bit more knowledgeable on it than I may be. AI in music. It's always existed to like a certain standpoint. I feel like AI in music has been very much so. There's always been things like presets or splice or, sequencers that will do things for you, autotune. Like you can look at a lot of stuff like automated integration, but obviously what's happening right now with AI is on a whole nother level. How do you see AI changing the production landscape in years to come, for good or for bad?
I think it's for both, honestly. I think like, if you're using AI to just like pump out a full song and then just dump it on a DSP, and just churn out content like mindlessly, I think that's bad. But like AI, as far as like being a tool to help you like sound design or to help you come up with like to make some sort of process like a little bit faster for you, I think that's cool. I don't know. Do you have this synth? It's called Synthplant. Have you heard of it?
Yes. Yep. Yep.
So Synthplant 2 has like an AI sort of feature where like you can drag a sample in and it'll analyze the sample and then create like 20 different like variations on like a synth patch that tries to recreate that sample as a synth, which is like crazy. Um,
Well,
but yeah, like stuff like that I think is really cool. And it's just like yeah, it's just a tool to help you, write music faster. A lot of producers, I think, like learning how to, become like a god at writing serum patches is like, it's very daunting, and for some people just don't have the time to do stuff like that. So I think anything that can speed up that sort of process and make it easier for people to write music, I think that's cool.
Absolutely. I think, yes, it's supposed to be a tool to help the efficiency of a very daunting workstation. And also,
Mm.
like, sound design is like my arch nemesis. It's not my strong suit. I think there's so many things that you can master in the art of making a song that, like, you look at pop music or rock or R&B or hip hop and you're like, they have 20 people to do the job that I'm doing making dance music in one song, whether it's the mixing engineer, the vocal engineer, the mastering engineer, somebody doing sound design. And for me, sound design has always just been really tough. So then in like the
Mm.
discourse of AI, I'm like, this is awesome that I can have something help me because I found like my go-to box of VSTs to really help me resample things and create things from scratch and understand basic oscillation. So
Yeah,
you
yeah,
kind
yeah.
of have the middle in between. And I think as long as, it always takes one person to ruin it for everybody, which as there already are. I mean, there's already AI generated music. You don't see it,
Hmm.
I think, a ton in the space that we're in dance music, because like we've always been in the digital world versus like the analog world. But you have like
Yeah.
folk bands and R&B singers and all of these fake AI artists already generating revenue on Spotify. It's really insane that that's happening. And I do not agree with that. But I think in terms of tools of our efficiency and like maybe making your not strongest suit in the DAW stronger and easier for you is ultimately going to create better music. Cause I've had this conversation with people so many times is like, we all get really caught up. I think a lot of times when you're an earlier producer and producing for other producers, like my
Yeah,
snare
for
and my
sure.
mix down, and I want to impress X, Y, and Z versus the human listening to your song, whether it's your girlfriend, your boyfriend, or somebody who has no idea what Ableton is, really just
Yeah.
wants a campfire melody that's going to get stuck in their head that they're really going to love as a record or a vocalist. It's a really strong hook. So what we often pay attention to isn't necessarily what makes a hit song. Do you have like a go-to creative workflow or like a way that you genuinely like generally start records, or is it different every time even after this long of making music?
I gravitate towards like just writing chords or like writing a melody. And I think that comes because of like my background in piano, like I used to just sit down on the piano and just like, write out chords. So whether it's like me sitting down on my keyboard and just like, writing a melody in a synth bash or like going through Splice and like trying to find like a cool melody that I can structure a song around, that's like typically how I approach it. So yeah, I'll find a melody, then I'll start like, pulling counter melodies, I'll pull some vocals, I'll start writing drums, I'll write the drop. But yeah, everything starts with the melody for me.
Are you a huge post processing individual? Kind of like we talk about this, not from like a veteran point of view. I used to do so much and it would ruin the actual artifact of my sound. And I feel like a lot
Yeah.
of people, again, when they start, it's kind of like you get all these racks, these post processing chains, and now I put like very simple mechanisms of post processing and I move
Mm.
on. If it's a good sound, whether it's from my piano or it's from a VST or whatever it may be. Are you someone that like in the DAW, like you're very meticulous with how you shape and like EQ and place your sounds and your music? Because I feel like from listening to your music, like most of your tracks are pretty large. Like they're not simple and
Mm.
like pushed to the limit and given that headroom. Like I feel like you're working with potentially like 100 tracks in a session or something
Yeah.
around there. Am I correct with that, or is that so far off?
No, you're correct. I think it's usually like 100. It can be like 60 to 100, but I've like gone up to like 150 tracks like for like a song. But like as far as like post processing, I really don't process stuff a lot. Like the way I produce is very simple. Like I'll like kind of like pull in a synth like Serum or whatnot, and I'll have like a few effects on it. I've seen some producers that'll throw like, you know, like 10 OTTs on one track and then like 10 different EQs. And after each EQ, they're like distorting it a certain way, then like EQing it again and like throwing a different effect on it and then EQing it again. And it's like, I'm not that technical with my production. Like when it comes to super technical and stuff like that, I'm really not that good at music. I'm more kind of like, I like to focus more on the like the songwriting aspect of it. Yeah, and also all my plugins are like very simple plugins too. They're like stock Ableton plugins. Like I think I have like Serum and then like a couple other small ones, but mostly I'm just producing like with stock Ableton stuff.
Less is more. Don't make something that needs to be really complicated, really complicated. I think it's really easy to make something really complex. And you're like, I need to add more because that's going to fix it, when you're really just destroying how it's supposed to sound. And I've definitely, it's been really awesome to talk to a really wide variety of producers, because everyone really has their own approach. Like they really do. And I think that's what's so like exciting about what we do is, one, there's always going to be the opportunity to learn more, whether you go deep dive into VST land and sound design land, or you're sitting down and collaborating with another producer. And I feel like on the Visions EP, that was incredibly collaborative. And I think a lot of people, when they first start producing and then they release a few original records, a lot of people lack the confidence. I even deal with this, to feel like they have the ability to proficiently like add value to another producer's song or record or collaborate with them in general. And you have done so many collaborations like across the course of your career. Is there any pieces of advice or like any way that you approach collaborating that could add insight to like the value that it provides to you as a producer?
When I first started collaborating with people, I would like send over like fully finished songs to other artists, and like I've found that like sometimes that isn't the best way to send a demo, because it's like if you send something that's fully finished to someone, they don't really know what else they can add, you know? So like when I start collabs now, it'll be very simple. I'll like literally just send over like chords and like a melody, like a vocal over it, something that'll like inspire somebody but also give them ideas of like, oh, this is cool, I could like do this for the drop, you know? So I mean, that's something that's worked for me personally. I don't know if that works for everyone, but yeah, I like to start collabs with just like a very, very basic idea, and not try to overwhelm the collaborator too much at first.
100%, because that's like what a quote unquote real collaboration is. It's just different because we send projects back and forth to each other versus like sitting in the studio a lot. I have 100 demos producer, or are you I start a record and I finish it and it's done and it's going somewhere type of producer?
I think the seconds. I'm like a very, very slow producer. Like I take my time with my music, which is like I think one of my biggest like kind of, I would say, weaknesses is that like I will just spend like an insane amount of time on each song just making sure that everything is perfect. Like I'm a big perfectionist, and I think I have like OCD. So yeah, one of my goals in the future is kind of to just like write music a bit faster and not get so like caught up in each song, and kind of being like, okay, it's okay to let this go, it might not be perfect, you know, but it's like, yeah, there's like a quote that's like, perfection is the enemy of good, you know? And it's like, it's good to strive to make things really good, but at a certain point, it's like, I don't think you're making something better when you're kind of just like rewriting the same synth patch over and over again. You know, at that point, it's like nothing is being done.
Because I feel like if you just don't care, it's like it doesn't make you feel good about the record. It may not translate well. You may not care about it as much. Like you have to really care about it. But I've always definitely envied people who are like, I'm giving it 2 days and it's done. And I'm like, damn, like I can't do that. Like I feel like when I sit on a record and I let 2 weeks go by and I come back to the record 2 weeks later, I'm so glad I gave it this break and I came back to this, because I'm hearing all of these different things that I can just wrap up. Yeah. But there has to be a timetable, and I feel like nothing's ever going to be perfect, but you can like strive for like excellence, or you can strive for like permanence in like your workflow of what you're doing. but people have to just be patient because I don't know. I feel like you definitely translate to your fan base that you really care about your records. And I think that's like a great reputation to have because you can definitely tell when everybody kind of just has the same sounding shit or it just like it doesn't translate well to a large system. Like that list can go on forever. And I
Mm.
never like want my music to fall in that bucket, but that comes with the never ending side of feeling like it's actually never done. And yes, you have to
Yeah.
fall somewhere in the middle.
Yeah. And sometimes you like put out a song and you'll be like, oh my God, I could have done that better. Like, why does that one sound that way? And it's like, you know what? There's nothing you can really do about it, you know? And like nothing is perfect. And sometimes it's like those little imperfections that add character to a song, even, you know? So it's like, yeah, whatever. Don't stress.
I agree. I like the imperfections. And yeah, at one point it's so easy to get to that 85 percentile, but getting from 85 to 100 is almost next to near impossible sometimes for certain records. And
Mhm.
I would love to know if there's anything in the future coming you're really excited for that you want to share with Insomniac Radio, people listening to the podcast, anything that we can like look for on the horizon.
Yeah. I mean, on the immediate horizon, I have a few shows coming up later this year. I'm playing Escape on Halloween, which I'm very excited for. I'm playing Ember Shores in December, which is a Millennium's Festival in Mexico. So I think that'll be my second ever international show. So very excited for that. Excited for Beach Vibes. And then I would say kind of like more long term. Um, I think like at this point in my career, like I have, you know, I've written like 4 EPs. I've released countless singles. I think like I'm finally ready to start the process of writing an album, which is like very daunting, but it just makes sense because it's like I've expressed myself in these kind of like shorter or like yeah, more shorter um, you know, format ways. And I think yeah, an album is just the next step in expanding my vision and showing my versatility as a producer.
That's so exciting to hear that you feel like you are at a point in your career where you're ready to like embark on honestly like the largest kind of most important thing that has happened in your career
Yeah.
thus far. How do you know that you're ready to write an album?
I've been around for so long. It's kind of like, why have I not written an album yet? You know? And I think a big reason for that is because it just never felt right. You know, it felt like I didn't like earlier in my career, didn't feel like I had enough momentum, you know, and I didn't want to spend a ton of time writing a huge project and then put it out and have like nobody listen to it, you know? Um, so it's, I would say as far as like timing, it feels right now. Um, and also I think I listen to and make so many different genres of music and like many genres that like I don't even release. So I've always wanted to express myself that way. And I think like an album would be a really cool opportunity for me to show like, hey, I'm not just like an EDM producer, you know. I can make like shoegaze, I can make like hip hop, like yeah, I kind of just want to expand the Hex Cougar sound even more.
I love that. Hell yeah. That makes me super pumped. Thank you so much for coming on today. Very excited that you had such like a monumental summer and the Visions EP is out now on Break Room as of last Friday. We're about to do a dive into it here on Insomniac Radio and do a little listen through of the EP. And I greatly appreciate you for coming on the podcast today, and I hope you have a good rest of your week.
Hell yeah. Yeah, thank you so much. Yeah, appreciate you having me on and yeah, this was really fun.